Hakadosh Boker Or Masechet Gittin Daf Tet Amud Aleph. Right? We were talking about that according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon. Yeah, Rabbi Shimon comes and he wants to say, yeah, Le'olamu ben chorin, the person, the slave, is going to go out free, even if the Adon was leaving something over to himself. Ad Shiomar, until he says the words, Kol nechasai netunin liploni avdi, chutz me'echam miribo shebeh, except for one of 10,000s. Okay? Which means that since it's such a case, we're not going to explain what was he meshayed, right? So therefore, we're going to say that he was nitkayen l'shayro, who eved is the actual eved in itself. And even if this eved is going to be more than that shiur, when he said chutz me'echam miribo, except for one in 10,000, he's just saying that we're going to say that he's not machshiv the eved, but rather to something very, very small. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yosef bar Manyuma and Rav Nachman, says Rav Yosef bar Manyuma in the name of Rav Nachman, Af al pi shekiles Rabbi Yosef et Rabbi Shimon. Even though, Rabbi Yosef came and he was meshabeach, he praised Rabbi Shimon. Halacha ke Rabbi Meir. The halacha is still going to be like Rabbi Meir, that the eved is not going to go out to cherut. The Tanya was learned in a braita, keshenemru davarim lifnei Rabbi Yosef, when these devarim, right, when the devarim were said in front of Rabbi Yosef, kara alav mikra azeh, he said on these words, sfatay mishak, meshiv devarim nechochim. Right, when a person comes and he said these devarim, right, what happened was is that all of a sudden he said sfatay mishak, the lips should kiss. Right, somebody that comes and he's answering dvarim nechochim, things which are proper, right, things. That's what is sfatay mishak. Right, I used to have a Rabbi once that many times that when people used to say something very beautiful, he used to say, sfatay mishak. Right, sfatay mishak means that, you know, how do you call this? Right, that it's a beautiful thing what you just said. Okay? Right, 100%.
We'll keep that for tonight. For
yeah. Omiyam Rav Nachman Hachi comes and he says, is Rav Nachman going to actually say such a thing? Right? That en mechalkim dibur, that we're not going to be mechalek a dibur, right? Whatsoever, right? The Amar Rav Yosef ben Yom Amar Rav Nachman says Rav Yosef ben Yom Nachman shchiv mera shekadav kol nechasav levdo. Imagine you have a shchiv mera. You guys remember what a shchiv mera is? No. Somebody that he's on his sick bed. Shachiv is to lie down, right? Obviously here mera is of choli, right? Of the sickness. So shchiv mera, right? Shekatav kol nechasav leavdo, that he's coming and he's writing all his properties to his slave. Ve'amad, right? And then all of a sudden he became healed. So imagine he was on his deathbed, he wrote everything out, and then all of a sudden he just got up. Yeah, everything was okay. Right? Right? He could retract on all the properties, he could take back all his properties, except for the eved. He cannot retract on freeing the slave. The reason why he could retract on the presents is because it's considered matanat shchiv mera. And therefore matanat shchiv mera goes back. Because basically the shchiv mera, the only reason why he gave away his properties was he thought he was dying. But if he's going to get up from his sickness, he would have never wanted to give away his properties. So therefore the present of a shchiv mera, matanat shchiv mera, returns to its owner. Okay? The guy comes and he gave out all his properties, he can retract on everything. But he cannot retract on the eved. Why? Because once he freed the slave, there was a Shem ben Chorin on the slave. Meaning the slave had a new term, a new status. The what? He's a free man. And the fact that he's going to be a free man, so therefore that's it. So you're not allowed to be Mishtabebo anymore. So this shtar, even though they wrote the Shichrur HaEved and the Aknata Nechasim all in one shot, all in one thing, he says Rav Nachman, you could actually separate them. And therefore you could divide them. That to do with the Eved, you cannot retract, and he's a free man. And to do with the properties, you could. So says the Gemara, Elam Ravashi, but rather Ravashi says, he says there, it's because there's not a real koret of the get. Meaning, the get in itself, right, is not really 100%, right, doing anything else. What does that mean? Meaning that the shtar is not koret between the Eved and between the Adonav, kol hatzorech, right? Because shtar shichrur, they learn it from a gzera shava, from a get of a woman, meaning a liberation paper, which basically somebody is giving a get to his eved in order to come and to liberate them, to make them free. That they learn it from gzera shava, from the get of the isha. And therefore, just like by the get, it says sefer keritut, it has to be completely cut off. So the shtar shichrur has to be koretu minatek, right, from the master, right, completely. Kritu gimura. So therefore, the shtarot that Rabbi Meir is talking about is hoil ve'ena even muskar be'em befirush. Since he's not written mefurash over there, right? The gam yesh bahem. Also, they have a shiur shemeshayer adon atzmo, that he is actually leaving over for himself. It comes out shemanichim makom memuar. So it comes out that they can actually say that the kavanah of the adon is to leave over also the eved, and therefore we don't know be'emet what's the. So if there's no kritut amitit. So that's why. That means according to Rav Ashi, that's the reasoning of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir is not talking about a bichlal, can you divide the dibur or not? He's just saying if you cannot come and you don't have a real sefer kritut, so it means just like you need a sefer kritut for a get, right? You need sefer kritut for a get. You also need for the eved. Okay? The get. Yeah. Now we said also that if you have orerin are the people that are going against the get, and they're saying that it's not a valid document, okay? So you're going to check validate the signatures. So Irer Kama, right? So he comes and he says, Irur Kama. If you're going to tell me Irur Chad, it's only going to be one person coming and going against the get. Rabbi Yochanan says, according to everybody in Irur Pachom Mishnayim, you cannot do a less than two. Ve'ela, but rather you do the Tureh. It has to be two. So says the Gemara, so it's 2 against 2. My chazid is samach tahani, samoch ahani. Why are you coming and being somech on these two? Be somech on the other two. Because if you're going to tell me it's 2 against 2, they cancel out. Oh, there's nothing left. So therefore, why are you going to say that no, maybe it's not a good get? I cancel those edim out. So ela yirer the baal, but rather it's the husband himself. And therefore, if the husband himself comes, it does help to put a safek in the kashrut of the get, right? But the moila edutam sheshnei adim ksherim to take away his irur, meaning that when there's going to come and 2 witnesses come and they're going to say, you know what, no, meaning that a husband is only one person, but he's believed to come and to put a psul in the get. Now, when you come and you're going to be mekayem the chotamav, which means you're going to validate the get through its signatures, so now it goes back to its original kosherness, and now there's not going to be a problem. Okay, Mishnah Tet Amud Aleph. Okay, Amavi get Medinat Hayam. So somebody that comes and he brings a get from Medinat Hayam. Ve'eno yachol lamar, and he cannot say Fanai nechtam. Im yesh alav edim, if it has witnesses, itkayem bechotamav. Right, you're going to be mikayem bechotamav. How could it be that he didn't say Fanai nechtam? How could he not say it?
Mute.
But he's not kosher to bring a get.
מה זה עוד פעם? איך הוא אומר את זה?
איך יכול להיות שהוא מביא את זה והוא לא יכול להגיד את זה?
He was not there when they voted.
No.
אז זה problem לא יכול.
So what does it mean, לא יכול? We said this already in the Gemara. We learned this.
He's under threat?
No. We said that he was normal at the time of the giving it over, and then right before he was going to say it, he became deaf mute. That was the Gemara. Right? We learned this.
He's always...
That's Aleph Bet. I teach you guys Aleph Bet, and then also Tanakh, and then also Gemara. What do you want?
אז יש עליו עת שבאמת הוא היה בסדר ואחרי זה הוא נהיה...
לא שהוא היה בסדר, הוא הגיע לבית דין והוא היה מדבר. פתאום הוא נותן לאישה את הגט, הוא אומר על איזה גיתך, ואז פתאום הוא רוצה להגיד בפני זה, ופתאום...
אתה לא מתעקש. הקייס פה, שהוא מביא...
יש עליו עדים, if you have עדים, יתקיים בחותמיו. So now, since he can't say anymore, you're going to have to verify the signatures. אחד גיתן נשים אחד, שחרורי עבדים, whether we're talking about a get of women, or liberation papers, liberation get, right, for a slave, shavu, it's shaveh, lemolichul mevi, whether it's bringing it from Eretz Yisrael, Medinat Hayam, or Medinat Hayam to Eretz Yisrael. That in both of them you have to say, and even by a get shichrur, which is called a get shichrur, by the way, it's called a get. Get shichrur, right? A get leshachrer, to, right? So even a get shichrur, you also have to say if afterwards en abal or adon yicholim leorer al zeh, this is one of the things which are going to be equal, right? Gittin Hashim and shichrure avadim. It's going to be the same halachot as is brought down over here. This is one of the things that there's the same halachot. Says the Gemara, asks a question that sounds very familiar, this Gemara. Listen to the Gemara. My eno yachol omar. So my eno yachol omar, what does it mean now that you cannot say anything? What does it mean he can't say anymore? If you're going to tell me it's a cheresh, cheresh baretu egito, can a cheresh bring a get? That's now we learned in the Mishnah later on, Kav Gimel Udalev. Hakol kesherin le'avi et a get. Everybody's kosher to bring a get, except for Cheresh Shotev Katan. So Rabbi Yosef says, he gave it to her when he was a pikach, and he he didn't have enough time to say until he became a charesh. So you just did a chazara. Daf He Amud Aleph and Daf Tet Amud Aleph. You just did chazara.
Can you record it?
Right? Echad Gittin Nashim ve'echad Shichrurei Avadim. Whether we're talking about, yeah? So we talked about whether it's going to be the talking about the get of women or the shichrur avadim. We learned in the Braita, there are three ways where a get of a woman is the exact same as a shichrur avadim, as the get of a shichrur of emancipation of the avadim. Number one, shavu lemolechu mevi, to do the molechu mevi, you have to say befanai nechtam fanai nechtam. Okay, so that's going to be number one, rule number one. Number two, Bechol get sheyesh alav ed kuti pasul. Any get that you have an ed, which is a kuti, is going to be pasul, except for gittin nashim v'shichrurei avadim. The Gemara is going to explain how could it be that we're going to make kosher such a document that you have an ed kuti, right? Kuti is the kuti. You remember this is like that they only believe in Torah shebe'achtav, or that they were only gerei arayot v'lo gerei emet. There's all questions about that, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish. Right? So he says, except for Gittin Nashim v'Shichrurei Avadim. Gimel, number 3, V'chol hashtarot, Tet Amud Bet, right? 9b. V'chol hashtarot ha'olim b'rekaot shel ovdei chochavim. Any document that comes into a secular court, af al pi shechotmen ovdei chochavim, even though the ones that are signing it are ovdei chochavim, ksherim, they're still going to be kosher. Right? That means basically you have a shtar that was done through a bedin, right, of a secular court. Right? So basically you have a secular court making this shtar. That means even though the ones which are signing are goyim, it's still going to be kosher. The Gemara is going to explain this also later on. Daf Yomi bet, right? Except for Gittin Nashim v'Shichrurei Avadim. Another explanation. Uchtivrei Rabbi Meir, and according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, be'arba'ah. There are 4 things that they're the same. Get Nashim and Shichrurei Avadim. Haomer ten get leishti. Imagine a person comes and he says, give this get to his wife, right? Ushtar shichrur zel avdi. Or he comes and he says, give this shtar shichrur to his eved. Ratzah lachzor b'shnehem yachzor. If he wants to retract, he could retract. Meaning, even though he already made the shaliach, if he wants to get rid of it before, as long as it didn't get to the hands of the woman or in the hands of the slave, he could retract. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Okay, Chachamim argue on Rabbi Meir, and they only hold that only in a get he could be chozer bo, but not in a shtar shichrur. So according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, there's a 4th way where get nashim and get shichrur selam imshos. Okay, there are 4 different common denominators between a get shichrur and an emancipation letter, right? And emancipation letter, that was one. Remember, there was a whole thing there. I have to check. Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. Bishlama l'Rabbanan. It's good according to the rabbis. Minyana l'miute had Rabbi Meir. Right? The reason why we had the number was to exclude Rabbi Meir. Meaning, why do we say three ways? To exclude that there is a 4th way, but we don't hold of it. So it's coming to exclude Rabbi Meir. But according to Rabbi Meir, Minyana l'miute, why do I have 4? Well, 4 and not 5. Well, why does it say 4 dafka? So it says, it's coming to exclude that which we learned on the Braita. Edim she'en yodim lachtom. What happens if you have witnesses that don't know how to sign? Baruch Hashem, nowadays the majority of people do know how to sign, but there were people that they did not know how to sign. Right? So therefore, exactly, they do all these different things. They don't know how to sign. So mekarin lahem niyar chalak, right? We make them like a sritat sakin, right? As in like with their name, right? On niyar chalak. Malim et akraim medio. Then that means basically we come and we take a knife, we make like the indent, and then they come and they fill it in with dio. They fill it in with ink. One of these words that they could sign in such a fashion, right? That means basically they're making like sritot, they're making like mamash, like you're making like fill in the blank, yeah. You're scratching it out, and then they have to come and they fill it in with ink. Megiten hashim. Aval shichrurei avadim shakol shelo, but anything to do with shichrurei avadim shtar shtarot. Im yodin likrov lachtom chotmim. If they know how to read and sign, then they could do it. Im lav, and if not, they cannot sign. So the fact from here you see, right, that's not like the Tanakama that he said that you could do that in all the shtarot. So it comes out the Tana of Braita is coming to teach you the lachaz like Rashbag, right? And therefore, Rabbi Meir said Gittin Nashim is only 4 things, right? But to do with this, right, there is a avdel b'neim, just like Rashbag, right? That means there is a difference between them. That's according to Shitat Rabbi Meir. Okay, so says the Gemara, Kriya man dechar shmei. Who's talking about reading? We're talking about signing. The witnesses have to sign, not to read. What do I care about reading? Answers the Gemara, no, we're lacking part of it. This is what it needs to say. If you have witnesses that they don't know how to read, we read it in front of them. And then they come and they sign it. But if they do not know how to sign, and then we're going to come and we're going to do this fashion of the, like scratching it out, and then they fill in with the ink inside of it. So ask the Gemara, the two leka, are you going to tell me that there's no other ways that the emancipation letters, right, or this document, a liberation document, is going to be the exact same as a get, which is also an emancipation document, right? It's giving her a freedom. Yeah? Are you going to tell me that? So he says, the two leka, there is another one. Imagine right now a person comes and he says, you know what, give this get to the guy's wife, or give a shtar shichlur to his thing, and then the meshaleach dies, meaning the one that sent him dies before it got to their hands. You can't give it after death. Right? So I mean, this is another way that they're both equal. One more time. Somebody comes, John Doe comes and he gives to Mr. X, or he gives to David. David's the shaliach, yeah? So he gives to David as a shaliach, he gives him a get, and he says, give it to Jando, sorry. Yeah? So, right, John Doe to Jando, but he gave it to a shaliach. When John Doe gave it to Mr. David, he dropped dead after 20 minutes.
I'm always involved somehow.
Not you. No. The Jando, the John Doe. John Doe dropped dead before Mr. David gave it to Jando. Now Mr. David cannot give it to Jando.
The widow, she's not divorced.
She's a widow, she's not divorced. Yeah, because he didn't give it yet. Meaning, enget la chamita. You were only a shaliach until it got to her hands, right? You didn't fulfill the shlichut. So therefore, that's it. The same thing happens with get shichur, exact same thing. So therefore, it's the same halakha. So therefore, the Gemara is asking, what are you?
the contradiction.
What are you telling me right now? Right? That what? What are you telling me right now? That there's only 3, according to Tanakama, or only 4 common denominators, which means common characteristics between a get nashim and a get shichur. He says it's not true. There's an extra one. So according to Rabbi it will be 5. According to the Kama, it will be 4. What is it exactly? Right? A person that comes, he's going to give a get to his wife through a shaliach, or he's going to get shichur to his eved through a shaliach. He's going to come and he's going to drop dead before the shaliach gives it over. In such a case, lo yitnu le'achar mitah. But if he says tenu maneh leploni, if he says give money to this person, right, umet, and now the guy dies, yitnu le'achar mitah. You can give the money to the person. So you see here that there's a common denominator between get nashim and shichrur avadim, that both of them cannot be given right after death, and not like money. A present of money could be given after death, but not a get shichrur or a get of a woman, right? Those are the 2 different things. Everyone understood the question. The question is, here you have another, right, common denominator between get nashim and shichrur avadim. What is the common denominator? The common denominator is going to be what? That at the end of the day, after death, gamarnu, everything stops. So answers the Gemara, when we were talking about something which is not by all other documents, but something which is also by other documents, we're not going to learn. Because Rabbi sent in the name of Rabbi Yavu, you should know that Rabbi Lazar sent to the Gola in the name of Rab. Shchiv Merah comes and he says, Kitvu utnu, write and give, manele pluni, umet, and then he dies, which means he only told them to write a document and give it to them. And now he died before it was written, the document, or before the guy got the paper. En kotvim venotrim, we don't actually write it and give it over. Shema lo gamar laknoto ela bishtar, because maybe he only wanted to give him the kinyan through a shtar. Ve'en shtar la'achar mitah, and there's no shtar after death. So you see from here that since the nechasim are coming out, right, already from the reshut of the person giving it up, because now it already went into the inheritors. Kamarnu, meaning the second that the person dies, it goes to his inheritors. So once it goes to his inheritors, so now nobody can do anything anymore. You can't do anything anymore with it, right? So that's it. And by the way, you should know that is in secular law as well, which means in secular law, if I remember, once they find out that a person passes away, they freeze the assets, right? They don't just let that, meaning there's a certain time, obviously, until they find out, but I'm saying, but they start freezing everything. They don't just let everything do whatever they want. So ask the Gemara, fine, okay, so we just answered that. That means, why did we bring down this concept about giving after death? Because it's also by a document also. It's not only just by get nashim and get shichrur, it's also by other documents as well. So since it's also by other documents, we didn't bring it down because it's a common denominator for many things, not only just get shichrur and get nashim. Ask the Gemara, va'ika lishma. You need it to be lishma, meaning a get shichrur and a get avadim. Same thing. A get shichrur and a get nashim has to be done lishma. So says the Gemara, bishma l'Rabba. I understand Rabba haynu molichu mevi. That's the first one. Meaning, according to Rabba with the hey, the first one, which is Molichu Mevi, that you have to say Vanatam. Why do you have to say it? Now we're doing a Chazara on Bet Amud Aleph, right? Why do you have to say it? Because of Lishma, because Bikin Lishma. So therefore, it's already written down. Meaning, the number one common denominator between Get Shichrur and Get Nashim was Lishma, which is Molichu Mevi. But according to Rava, that he says that with an Aleph, Rova, So according to Rova, he comes and he says that we're talking about because of Edim Mitzvah Kayamo. Kasha, you have a question. The two, and furthermore, Ben Lerabba, Ben Lerava, Haika Mechubar. Whether according to both of them, you have Mechubar. What does that mean? We know that Get Nashim and Get Shichrur cannot be written on something which is Mechubar La Karka. If you write it on something which is Mechubar La Karka, it's Pasul, because you have to give Vinatam Biadav. Vinatam means you have to give it to her, that it's not lacking anything between the writing and the giving. The Katav Vinatan. Right? The Katav Vinatan means you have to write it and you have to give it to her. If you have to write it, then cut it and then give it to her, you're lacking. And therefore it's not kosher. So you cannot write a get or a get shichrur or a get nashim on top of a leaf, or on a branch, and then cut it off and give it to her. It has to first be detached, and then you write it and then you give it over to her. So that also is going to be a common denominator between get nashim and get shichrur. Answers the Gemara, ki ketani, what are we talking about now? Then this entire concept, Sulad Rabbanan. These are things which are going to be posel Rabbanan. Sulim Doraita Loktani, but something which is going to be Doraita, meaning Lishma and Mechubar are Dinim Doraita. So since they're Dinim Doraita, we didn't have to bring it down. When are we bringing down these 3 or 4 things? These are only Dinim Rabbanan, meaning the Rabbanan that's going to disqualify get, but not Doraita. So ask the Gemara, the Har Kaot Shel Ovdei Kochovim Psula Doraita. Right, 1 second. But a get and a shtar shichrur, right? If they come from a secular court, that's a psul doraita, right? V'ktanian we learned, right? That's going to be a difference. That's going to be like a common denominator between shtar shichrur, right, and get nashim. So answers the Gemara, be'edeh misira u'chrebi lazar. Really, be'emet, we're talking about that this document is with edeh misira. Edeh misira are the ones which are giving over the document, and like Rabbi Lazar, Tamar, that he wants to say edeh misira karte. Edeh mesira means that these are edeh mesira which they are going to cause the girushin, meaning like this. If you remember, we were going to bring down a machloket, right, between the 2 different rabbis, whether we say edeh mesira karte or edeh chatima karte, right, between Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi, which means, do we say which is the ones that they finalize the get? Are they the ones which are signing on the get? Or are they the ones which are actually giving over the get? The way the nafkamina, if you remember, was, do you need signatures on the get at all? Right? You remember this? We spoke about that because there was a whole machloket. Do you need ktiva lishma, chatima lishma? Do you need both lishma? But for sure, what's going on here is, what's the thing which is cutting off? Is it the edeh chatima or the edeh mesira? Edeh chatima are the witnesses which are signed on the actual get in itself. Edeh mesira are the witnesses which are giving over the get. So let's say there's no edim on the get itself. So it's still going to be kosher according to Rabbi Lazar, because he says the mesira karte. That's how we paskin, even though we paskin that we should do both. Right, but technically speaking, even if it didn't have witnesses whatsoever on the get, it would still be kosher. So because of that, that's what he's coming and he's saying, right? Because of that, this entire concept, right, that edim of deko chavim is going to be kasher midoraita, it's only going to be pasul midrabbanan, because technically speaking, edem mesira are the ones which are cutting off, not the edeh chatima. I don't care if there's going to be, right, these secular people that are going to be written on the get, because it doesn't matter, right? All I need is the edem mesira, which are going to be kosher edim, and that there's not going to be any problem. So says the Gemara, "V'hamediktani seifa." Let's see the seifa. The seifa says, Rabbi Shimon says, "Af elu kesherin these are also going to be kosher when they go in their kaot in the secular courts. Rabbi Zera says in Bizera, Yarad Rabbi Shimon l'shitato shel Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Shimon goes to the shita of Rabbi Elazar. Damar de Mesira Karte miklad the Tanakama savar. Right? No, so it's mashma that the Tanakama doesn't hold right of the Mesira Karte. So because of that, but rather it's a dechatima like Rabbi Meir. So what's going on then? Then it should be pasul midoraita, not pasul d'Rabbanan. So right. So answers the Gemara and Yudah Mudalef on the top. Ika benayhu, the difference between them shemot muvakim. If you have witnesses which are known to be non-Jewish, meaning if you already know, you see the names, and you know that these are non-Jewish witnesses, so therefore it's not going to be pasul midoraita, right? Why? Because basically what happens is that you don't need to do anything else, right? Because basically what's happening is that you would never get into a problem. Meaning, if you're going to come and you're going to see this document, you're going to say, these are kosher witnesses, right? But if you're going to come and you're going to see, you know that these guys are not Jewish, so there's not going to come out a problem of other ones, of other witnesses, right? Yeah, the documents, exactly, right? Says 1 second, fine, you just answer that up. Meaning the erkaot, even though it's doraita, we answer up, maybe it's only the Rabbanan because we hold them v'de mesira karte, and therefore it's only the Rabbanan. And the second answer is, even if you hold the chatima ba'inan, if it's shemot muvakin, which means that there are names which are established names that you know that they're not Jewish and you would never get into any problems, so therefore there's not going to be a problem, right? So ask the Gemara, what about chazara? Chazara is doraita. You see, you have to do chazara all the time. It's midoraita. That's the musar for today. Yeah, right? What does that mean? You have to do chazara. What's a chazara? Chazara means you retract. That means basically the husband could retract after giving over the get to the shliach. That's going to be posel leget midoraita, and we still learned it, right? We said that you could retract for a get, but you can't retract for a get shichrur. Why? That's doraita. It's not the Rabbanan. And so the Gemara, ela kiktani. Yes, that's only by a get though, not by a get shichrur, right? So answers the Gemara, ela kiktani minta dedeta b'kiddushin. We only learn things which has nothing to do with the shtar kiddushin. Minta dita b'kiddushin. It's something that has to do with also shtar kiddushin loktani, which means just like a get, right? So too is the same thing to do with a shtar kiddushin. If you're going to retract before he actually gives it to her, she's not going to be married. So anything which is to do with also a shtar kiddushin, we do not mention, right, as well, right? Because one of the ways to get married is through a shtar, right? So therefore, it's also, we didn't mention it. Chazara gufa ita b'kiddushin. He says, 1 second, but chazara itself, we do have by kiddushin. So it says, b'shtuchut bal kolcha tevegiddushin ita v'kiddushin leta. He says, no, there's one difference between kiddushin and kiddushin. Kiddushin, you need her consent. To marry a woman, you need her consent. That's what we ask her, right? Is this shaveh pruta? Do you know that you're getting married with this thing? It's even worth even a penny, right? We want to make. There's a lot of things that we do in the tekes, right? In the ceremony to show that she's giving consent. However, though, to do with a get, there's no consent. It's against her will, and that's why there's going to be the difference between the kiddushin and the girushin. With this, we finish until the Mishnah.